Break Fix Podcast is all about capturing the living history of people from all over the autosphere, from wrench turners and racers to artists, authors, designers, and everything in between. Our goal is to inspire a new generation of petrol heads that wonder, how did they get that job or become that person? The road to success is paved by all of us because everyone has a story.
You and your car on America's best racetracks. That's the Hooked on Driving motto. GTM has been very fortunate to have partnered and worked with HOD for many years, as well as watching their program evolve and expand. For those that know Hooked on Driving, not much of an introduction is probably needed. But for those that might be new to the brand, with us tonight is Mike Arrigo, Director of Hooked on Driving Northeast, to explain why HOD is America's #1 non-competitive performance driving program. So welcome to Break Fix, Mike.
Thanks for having me on. I'm glad I finally got on here.
It's a long wait sometimes, and I apologize. Yeah. You guys should have been on here a lot sooner. With that being said, let's talk about how you, Corvette Club petrol head, got involved with Hooked on Driving and how you've grown the Northeast program over the years and how you've made changes.
My usual joke when people ask me that, Mona told me not to say it, but I'm going to say it anyway, is I lost a bet. Now I run Hooked on Driving. Truth is, I started with a Corvette and I was with NCCC, National Council of Corvette Clubs. Most of their stuff was autocross and one high-speed event we do at Jefferson every year, the Spooktacular it was called. I was doing stuff with NASA mostly. PDA and NASA just become merged back then into one unit. Audi, Ferrari, the Corvette Club. The usual track junkie stuff where you jump wherever there's a track day, you're kind of running up to. I'm good friends with the regional competition director for Corvette. And Brian's like, you got to try this HOD. It was brand new. It had just come here, and it was actually considered the Pennsylvania region when it first started, believe it or not.
Interesting.
I think David started it 2004. So this was like maybe 2007-ish. We went out there. It was pretty awesome. I'd say the first time I did an HOD event, it was really different from what I was used to. Most of the stuff it's that very club mentality, or you went to like someplace that raced. So this was like kind of the first time there was something that was completely non-competitive and had no car brand affiliation. I saw the way Joe Mills ran his operation at the time. He was the original franchisor here, and Joe Mills is a great guy. He still comes to all our events. It's like I can never not have him around.
We just saw him at Watkins Glen here at the finale of 2021.
All the time. I just saw the way he looked at people and treated people. It was different. Like, people, they were drivers, they were customers, they were guests, they were real people. They weren't just like numbers on a balance sheet, so to say. And, that's what really stuck out in my head at the time, because I drove to the track, this was pre-trailering. So I had a 100-mile radius, but that was it. If AAA was going to tow me home, I was good. And then it went to the 200-mile range. So unless I was going with somebody who had a trailer and a car that they could drive in the street, like that was my little bubble. It was so great when I got the 200-mile trip because, that opened the door for Watkins Glen and Summit and all the other places I always wanted to go to. But yeah, that was it. That really started me there. So after that, I was still coaching for everywhere else. 5 years down the road, Dr. Edelman basically took over. I love Fred. He's great, but he's a foot surgeon with multiple practices. Think about the time it takes. How much time does it take just to get yourself ready to go to an HPDE or any kind of driving event? Think about trying to run the operation. So it was a lot for him. I'm not really sure what Fred was thinking of buying Hooked on Driving as a surgeon. You think about it, like, here you are, in an operating room, and then the next day you're going to be out there just, kind of handing out schedules and putting on a track event. Definitely a different vibe for somebody. And it's a lot of work. His wife, Bridget, was really involved. And I think the first year, the legendary Jay Tepper pretty much took the reins and ran it for him. Year 2 with Fred, I think it was, Jay was kind of out of the picture. And then Chris Liu took over. And I had met Chris Liu at HOD. I think the first time I met Chris was up at New Hampshire Motor Speedway when we used to do the BMW event for South Shore BMW. Chris took over about half a season in, brought me on, and then the two of us kind of ran it for Fred for another year and a half or so.
And that's when a lot of us here at GTM started to come on board, which is when you and Chris were running the show.
We had a lot of good momentum because being a national brand makes things a little bit different. We try to keep it somewhat standard, even though every region has their own little flavor to it. My region, which, think about the area I have to encompass. I go from New Hampshire down to Virginia. I think I'm probably the largest region track-wise probably in the country. If I look at them, I'm not the busiest because, you look at California, their season's 11 months out of the year. And, if I can get 6 good months and 2, cross my fingers, I hope nothing goes bad months with weather, I'm lucky. So we got approached by Corvette, by Chevrolet for the launch of the Stingray, because they were bringing back the Stingray. They were worried. So that put us out there a lot more. We had 2 Stingrays for people just to play with at every event. And I think we did 6 national meets where we had Pratt & Miller there. I don't know, 90 some odd Corvettes come in there, and they, brought people in. You were specialized. So if you owned a Porsche or you owned a GTR or you owned any of these kind of competitor cars, they brought you in to try and do this. And it definitely worked fantastic. So fantastic that, our year 2 option, we weren't even needed. So we kind of just put ourselves up, which kind of sucked for me because, my Z06 never appeared after that. But it's a funny story. We were at New Jersey Motorsports Park. A guy comes out there and he's got his Porsche, his 911. He takes the Stingray for a ride. He loves it. Saturday, he goes right over to Quebec, puts his 911 on a trailer, takes a Z51 car right off there, and that's what he drove on Sunday.
Nice.
Like that. It's like, so I know that type of stuff works. Wish we could get back to doing that stuff and actually have live cars there for people to play with. Not every company wants to do that type of stuff anymore. It seems companies have gone the way to, let me pay a marketing agency to do everything.
Let's unpack a couple of things here. So
Yeah.
HOD as a brand, Hooked on Driving, started in California by David Ray, and that's where the parent company comes from. And you mentioned briefly, there's been franchises of HOD over the years. Now, when we came on the scene 2012-ish through people like the Crutchfields and others, there were more regions to HOD. There's HOD Southeast, there was HOD Great Lakes. Nowadays it's changed a couple times. There's HOD Texas, there's like HOD Southeast again in Florida and things like that. So it kind of ebbs and flows. And as you mentioned, it changes ownership. But you've been around a long time now. You came on the scene, in the early days and then took over in the 2012-ish timeframe. If I got my calendars right, you've been growing steadily ever since. What has changed over your tenure at HOD? What have you really tried to improve from the early days?
We tried to make things, I don't want to say the same, but we really tried to make sure we catered to every track and every demographic, because how you operate in Real South is very different than how you operate, say, up in Boston and Massachusetts. Just completely different genre of people. In the beginning, there was the Pennsylvania region, which now became the Northeast. There was a Southeast, there was a Florida region, there was the California region, and there was the Great Lakes region. What had happened when the Southeast region, I kind of absorbed Virginia, because I really wanted Virginia. I think the two of the best tracks on the eastern half of the United States got to be Watkins Glen and VIR. There's a reason that magazines use them to do their tests and stuff.
Absolutely.
So I got Virginia, and then Florida actually took over from basically the Carolinas down. So instead of having 3 regions on the East Coast, kind of muddled it down to 2 because there's a big gap of where tracks were. But in the meantime, we've been moving more and more west. So we've been doing stuff at NCM. The last 2 years with COVID it didn't happen, but we run Camaro Fest every year. David would fly in and run Camaro Fest for them. And it was, we started doing pit race. I'm trying to put together a Mid-Ohio type of back-to-back event with pit race, but track scheduling is it's an unbelievable juggling act. 2022 is definitely increased for us as far as track days. We added a ton of track days, but I know I kind of went off there, but California had its region. There was a Pacific Northwest, and then California was 2 regions, Northern and Southern. Dwayne Dobson, the race car driver, took over the Southern region. But I know his racing career kind of took off more, so David Ray put California back into one region. Now we have Texas, Arizona. So David added a couple regions. The person that actually came out there and took him over, real interesting guy. Name is David Zubik. If you look him up, he's got some history, Olympic skier. I mean, does a lot of exotic car experience. He's been around a long time. I mean, I think everyone that's in Hooked on Driving family nationally all started somewhere, in some kind of car enthusiast type of guy. I don't think anyone actually came into this because they just saw they're going to be the next Warren Buffett by running an HBD organization. I think it's all a labor of love for everybody.
And if I remember correctly, one of our members who was stationed down in Texas happened to go to a HOD Texas event. And I believe Zubik, you mentioned, he actually owns the track, the home track that HOD Texas is based out of, which is Grand Sport Speedway, grounded in motorsport there. So that's really pretty cool. So would you say that's maybe one of the key differentiators between Hooked on Driving and other providers that are out there, be it Chin or SCCA or Just Track It and other folks that have been on Break Fix over the last, year and a half or so? What would you say really stands out and makes HOD different?
I think how we look at people, how we treat people, we try to treat everyone as an adult. I don't want anyone spoken down to. I don't want anyone feeling like inferior. I mean, the people that come to our events are pretty far along in life. They're CEOs, they're doctors, dentists, lawyers. I mean, they're professional people. They're usually top in their field. They're kind of decision maker type of guys, mostly. We want to treat them the right way. There's a balance to keeping people in order and kind of bringing them along and to treating them right. So I don't consider them, just some random driver. I don't tell our coaches are instructing you and you're just some student out there. No, you're our guest. You've chosen to come to us and we're going to treat you as such. The same way if you had a guest at your house, you're going to treat them a certain way and they're going to treat you a certain way also because, they're a guest of yours. So we want to make sure everyone's an adult. We treat them as such. We expect them to act like adults. And I think it's been balanced out really, really well the way things have become. Kind of people that don't fit that HOD family mentality, I think they kind of uninvite themselves. They realize it's not for them. We look at it, we treat people as friends driving with friends. They're gentlemen drivers out there. I mean, granted, we have Trans Am and IMSA teams and pro racers that come and practice with us under a pseudonym a lot of times that you don't see, but they're drivers driving with drivers. That's there. One day he came to us and he said to us, he comes up to and he grabs Mo and he says, I got to tell you something about what goes on here. He goes, this is the first organization where the helmets come off. I know who drives that car now. It's not just that car and that car and that car. It's Joe and John and Larry, and people become friendly and they talk. At lunchtime, you're sitting at the table and, the guy that's driving that $6,000, Miata is having lunch and yapping and they're all having a great time with the guy who just showed up in a Senna GTR. It's people. We like to bring people together. We consider this the HOD family, and everyone that comes to an event, we try to treat them that way. I think that's a big part of it.
Well, I'll never forget one of the first instructor meetings that I went to where Chris Liu was, and he always had a certain way of presenting things, especially the hierarchy, I guess you could say, and the way as coaches, we don't call ourselves instructors in HOD, we call ourselves coaches, the way we would treat the guests. And I always thought it was hilarious. He'd tell us right up front, you're adults, be professional, do your job, but also remember that they're here to have fun, be safe. And if they learn something as a result, so be it. Yeah. So he always put the impetus on customer service. And I will say that is something that definitely has always stood out about HOD versus anywhere else that I've been. No slight against anybody else. There's a ton of fantastic groups out there, but you guys really make it a point to be forward about it, to be very upfront. Like you said, Joe Mills set that precedent by making customer service the number one priority. It's really important. And I do feel that is a key differentiator. But let's move on a little bit and talk a little bit more about HOD. So as the Pennsylvania region originally, and now Northeast, does HOD Northeast have a quote unquote home track or home base?
That's kind of hard to say. When you have an area that stems from New Hampshire down to Virginia, it's hard to say what's going to be your home base. I live 11 miles from Pocono, give or take. Can I say that's my home base? No, not really. We do a lot of events in New Jersey. I think we're doing 7 different dates in New Jersey. We have 8 days at Watkins Glen in 2022 now. So it's kind of hard to pick a track that say that's my home base, because we're national. We want anyone who comes, becomes part of that team HOD, it's like, what's your home track? Well, anyone you want to be at, so to say. So I don't want to just pick. I couldn't really say home track.
That's
personally,
fair. That's fair.
Watkins Glen's probably one of my favorites because of the area, because, we have some good friends up there also. Overall a good time up there. It's just such a fantastic facility. If I lived closer to VIR, I might say VIR. It's tough to pick one track, just in case any of the track operation guys are out there listening. We love you all.
Yeah, right.
Give us better dates.
So let's switch gears a little bit because obviously we're talking about HPDE, high performance drivers education. There's always an emphasis on the E part of this, which is education. So let's talk about HOD's DE program. What is it like? What are expectations for somebody that's new and never been to an HOD program? Or maybe there's some things that veterans have forgotten that you would like to remind them of. What's it like at an HOD event, for the first time?
There's basically two things I look at that are major for me. One is safety. Safety is always paramount for me. You got to have a safe day. People get comfortable and they realize that this is actually going to be safe for them. Their anxiety level drops down a little bit. I try to explain to people, say, hey, you're doing 70, 80 miles on a highway. You have no idea the girl next to you is crying, texting her boyfriend who just broke up. The truck driver's been in and out there for 17 hours, about to fall asleep, and you're 3 inches away from them. You're going to come here. You're going to have a closed racetrack, no cross traffic, no this, no that. No one's going to pass you without you knowing about it. You're going to be in complete control of everything that goes on around you. It's a lot safer. So we try to explain that to them and bring their anxiety down as far as someone new goes. It's very structured, as you see, but it's also very fluid at the same time. So we have to make sure to balance that structure with the fluidity of what people want. So after that, I look at it, the next part of it, like you mentioned before, is my motto, safe, have a good time. Because if we make this enjoyable for you, like anything else, you can't help but learn something about you, about your car, about the person next to you, whatever it is, but you're going to come away with some bit of knowledge. This is for me. I love this. I can do this. This is not, whatever the case may be. Then the other part of it is like, what does that individual want out of this? There's some people out there that they want to be the next Emerson Fittipaldi or, Mario Andretti, or, they might have real aspirations. They want to, go to Formula One day. Who knows out there? We got to figure out what that one person is looking for. What's their goal? We have people out there, their only goal is like, listen, I got this great car. I do 50 miles an hour on the highway because I don't want to get a ticket or get hit by a deer or something like that. I want to see what it can do, but I want to make sure I'm safe doing it. So that coach's job for that day is to help that guy achieve that goal. He wants to just see what this car is like. He wants to learn. He wants to get more comfortable with it. The next weekend, that coach might be with someone and he's like, listen, I think I want to race one day. I love it. I don't want to street race anymore. I want to do this. And so we really customize it for what that person wants, but under that complete structure of like, these are the guidelines that you have to follow. Right before every event, kind of 3-4 days before the event, you get them. I send out like a 2-page email. Make sure you follow up, check your car, give that flag talk, the ancient flag video from David. I want people to really understand. So when they come out there, they're already prepared. And I think if you give people a little bit more information about that and what to expect and what to do, they'll have a better time. It'll flow easier.
So to your point, I think one of the things that's often overlooked or maybe misunderstood about HPDE, it is a discipline within motorsport, right? It's educationally focused, but a lot of people that I've talked to that I'm like, hey, you should really come to the track. You should check it out. They're apprehensive. I've discovered there's this fear that they're going out there alone. They're going to take their car and they're out on the track by themselves with 50 other people. Like you said, in reality, it's not like that. You have somebody in the right seat. You have a classroom scenario that you're going through. You're being educated on how to improve your driving and grow yourself as a driver and learn your machine, et cetera. That's the focus behind the DE part of HPDE. So let's talk a little bit more about how HOD does it differently. What does Jay, as we all know, Jay is classroom instructor emeritus. What does he do? What does he talk about? What type of knowledge does he try to transfer to these newbies?
Well, usually our structure kind of is based on, we get them in the classroom. So the new guys are going to go out there. They're going to be with their coaches. We have a small drivers meeting. They meet their coaches if they haven't already communicated, because we send out an email. And I got to say, we get about a 90% response that the coaches and our guests have actually contacted each other. They gotten to talk. They got a little bit of that out of the way. So when they meet each other for the first time, they've already had some sort of conversation or dialogue. Then they'll go out on track. There's an orientation and inspection lap. So you're going to drive under highway speeds. Helmet's not required. There's a pace car out there and there's no passing. So you're just going to go out there single file, and you've been part of it. You've seen it. And that's just kind of to alleviate so people can get a little bit of vision of what's going on out there, where things are for like 15 minutes or so before they get into that classroom. That angst to go out there, we're going to be out on track, we're going to be out on track, probably builds up for, that 2 hours while they're in that classroom before they really get out there. So I think by doing that orientation inspection lap out there that goes out there, they get to see the track. And it's multifold, you can inspect the track, you can see what's going on, and you kind of get that a little bit out of your system. You've been out there, even though it's slow, and you realize the residual effect is like all those flaggers are holding out a yellow flag. So now you understand what a flag is. You've seen the video if you hopefully read the email that we send out and watch. And that guy's standing out there with that flag out there. And he's like, oh, okay, so flags. So now when he gets in that classroom, they talk about flags. They've already seen it out there. There's a guy holding that flag. There's a guy waving that checkered. So they get a little bit out of their system right then and there. They head over to the classroom where Jay takes over and starts to go over the basics, what high performance driving really is, what's involved in it, a little bit of the physics behind it, and a lot of the communication that you're required to use. So that way, when you get in the car with that coach, you have already kind of somewhat built up that skill set. So that communication's much, much easier and fluid. We try to make sure that there's a relationship built. Ken does this, when I'll talk about Ken after too, because he's just a fabulous part of the organization. Goes out there and he really looks. He says, part of being personal with everyone, I said, okay, I know that he's 6'4". I'm not putting him in that Miata. I know that he's, tiny, but he just drives all front wheel drive cars. So if I put him with that Cobalt, those guys are going to meld well, so there's a lot of background work to really try and make sure that people are paired up personality wise also, along with the cars that they're used to. Let's be realistic out there. A guy who drives a Cobra probably is like, oh my God, I got a Corvette guy in the car with me now. A guy in a Vet, and goes, so I don't want that Mustang guy teaching me anything. So we try to really break that apart like that because, the Corvette and the Viper guy and the Mustang guy, they're all having lunch together later on. So we really break the cliques. There's really no hierarchy of this group of coaches and that group of coaches and these guys over here. We try to make everyone feel like they're at home, like there's no one's inferior or better than anyone else. At the end of the day, same blood runs through all of our veins here, no matter how good or bad we are. No matter how good we've become, one point in our lives, we got in that car for the first time, like, what the hell? What's that third pedal for? My mom never told me that third pedal. What the hell is that? We all started somewhere and really had no clue, and someone brought us along, and no one was born being a Lewis Hamilton or or an Anton Senna. I try to kind of remind people that you were there one day. Remember what it was like that, so that way you can better help this person that's there now. I think we do a decent job. We always try to do a little bit better. We send out surveys and we really listen to what people try to have to say about things that go on there. For 2022, we're definitely making some changes based on the surveys we've gotten from people on how they like runs, how the run groups are structured, how the time frames are structured. They're adaptive. I don't run 20-minute sessions at every track like some other places will do that. He goes, nope, it's 20 minutes on the 20s, on the 40s, and on the zeros, and that's it. And I'm like, well, I can't do that. 20 minutes at a 3.5 mile track is like, okay, I just did 7 laps. I'm back in there, take your 3 laps to warm up. You don't want to do a half-hour session at a 1.5 mile track either. Sometimes that might be too much. So it's hard to find a balance with the hours that go on there. And I think that's one of our strengths, that we really try to focus and customize every track experience based on that track and based on the people we have coming. The run group sessions, the way we run them, we're A, B, C, D. A is our novice group, and the wristbands are colored and everything else that goes on there. So you always know what run group you're in. You do it a couple times, 4th, 5th, 6th time, depending whatever it is, but now that classroom kind of gets stale at the same time, right?
Yeah.
You don't need to hear Jay's classroom for a 4th time. I mean, it gets repetitive after a while, and each track is kind of customized a little bit to it, but maybe you've been to Thunderbolt 3 times already. Guess what? You don't need to seat that same classroom for the 4th time. For 2022, one of the things we're planning is once you've been to a track, you've done this a couple times, you know the classroom stuff, you have that basics and the bad habits have already been broken. You're going out there, maybe you're not ready to go out there on your own yet. But we're going to start to say, okay, once you get that first class, remember, we're going to remind you because, you can never say it enough. The flag talk, the safety talk, and the safety speech. They're going to start going out with some of the advanced tutoring that's going on there and the instructing that's going on, with our classrooms. We're going to teach something more dynamic, say from each corner. So now you're going to go out there and we're going to be doing stuff from the track side. So maybe we'll be picking a corner. At that corner, there might be really good examples of how the apex is taken, how the track out is used. And the way we formatted our schedule is right after the A group, C, D, B, A, C goes out, which are our more advanced drivers. Those are our solo advanced drivers passing us out anywhere. And they could say, see what that car's done, and then start to explain, say he's a little off in the next car. So that coach that's going out there with them, one of our group leaders, is really going to focus on them. Where people could ask questions and do things and make it a little bit more interactive on there. Eventually you get good enough, you don't need a coach in the car anymore, or you don't need it every time anymore. Prior, you'd go from A to B. I start to look at this, I'm like, so Group B, intermediate drivers, the biggest variety of talent.
My favorites are the Bs. But continue.
The B and the cars, right? Because you got low horsepower cars, and then you got ZR1s and everything in between. You have guys that just became solo and guys that should have been advanced a long time ago, but I don't want to play with the big boys. Most of my friends are in B still, so I'm going to register there. So you got this extreme vast talent separation and car separation, and it become overwhelming because the pace is much faster when you get into B. I mean, depending where you go and which B drivers are there, I'm like, holy shit, these guys are just like killing it. When half the team is, running 206 to 210s at Watkins Glen in the B group, you're like, wow, So what we're doing, so when you're done with A, you're actually going to run in with A solo now. You're going to be out there on your own, but at the pace you're already used to. The size limitations have changed also. So Watkins Glen is 3.4 miles long. I think we're only going to take 12 A's, 17 A solos, 35 Bs. If you look at it there, that's not even 10 cars per mile, basically, on most of the like that. If you're looking at the A group, it's pretty small. We're really going to try and stick to that now. And it gives me a little bit of a buffer for the people that might exaggerate their talent for the first time, or, they might be a C-level driver at a track like Pocono, but, they get to Watkins Glen where it's very different. They're like, okay, I'm not ready for that.
Right.
So we're very adaptive, very fluid. After the first session, we kind of know the newer people that have never been with us, if they're in the right group. So they might need to be moved up or moved down. I know a lot of places, your first time running with them, like you got to start at the beginning. Do I need a guy who's here for the first time, is won WRL, California, and Lucky Dog? Does he really belong in the novice group because he's never run with us? No. We treat them like adults. We let them register where they want, but we also do our homework. We look at their experience. If something looks out of whack, they're getting a phone call. Our group leaders have notes on every driver that comes in there. This year, for the most part, we've had the same group leaders almost at every event, or they're there doing something. So they get to know the drivers. You get to see the drivers. Drivers start to become, used to each other's. But I think that's one of the bigger changes we're doing for next year, limiting the run group sizes tremendously.
So listeners, as you can probably ascertain by this point, you think I talk a lot on this show. If I let Mike go, he takes all of the runway. And I mean that in the most loving way, by the way. I mean, you are definitely a talker, but we have to unpack a little bit of all this stuff you said here because you covered a lot of ground. So I want to refresh our listeners' minds here for a minute, especially if they're learning about hooked on driving for the first time. So what did we just cover in your talk here? We talked about expectations. We talked about what to expect in the classroom, what Jay covers. We talked about progression models. We talked about number of cars on track, the run groups, right? I do think we need to expand a little bit more on the progression model, but I also want to remind folks that when you come to HOD, when you're signing up in the A group, the beginner and novice group, you are assigned a coach. It's a 1-to-1 student to instructor ratio, which is awesome. As a coach myself, a veteran coach of HOD, I love the fact that I can come in and work with you, the student, for the entire weekend, right? Be it a 2-day event, 3-day event at Watkins Glen, things like that. I can really focus my attention on your car, your needs, what needs to get done. And my job is to augment everything that's going on in the classroom that Jay and also the CI, Kenny, are covering. So they don't cover all of it in the textbook sessions. We have the rest of the work to do out in the field, but we're working together. We're working in concert with the material that's there. It's a really great thing. And I hate this term, but it's a symbiotic relationship between the coaches in the field and what's going on in the classroom. Just want everybody to understand that you're covered on all ends. You're not alone. And if you do feel as though you're off by yourself, raise your hand, come say something to somebody, because that's not the HOD way, that's for sure. But let's unpack the progression model a little bit more, Mike. A is our beginner novice, B is our intermediates, and then we have C and D group. So you kind of hinted that C group is advanced. And then there's this mysterious, also quite alluring D group, which we'll talk about. But how does one get from A to B to C to D? How does that exactly work?
A group is our novice group. Like, you've never done this before. You want to try it. You sign up. We try to get you acclimated. What you're going to do is you're going to have a dedicated 1-to-1 coach, right? You're going to sit there whenever you're on track, that coach is going to be there, Helmet to helmet communicators are absolutely mandated by us. So you're never going to be screaming over someone or feeling like that. And he's going to be with you and he's going to guide you through that, everything that has to go on there. You know, you could say, I don't want to say concierge, but you know, he's there for you. You know, we've weeded out people that have just come kind of just, oh, I just want some free track time and I'm out of here. I got to say, everyone I see come to our events almost entirely are doing that just because they just love to give back to the sport. It's amazing how many people just show up and say, yeah, you know what, my car broke last weekend, but they're still there coaching. You know, they're not just saying, oh, well, my car broke, I'm not coming anymore. You know, it's few and far between when that happens. And it's very understandable. I don't expect someone who lives in upstate New York to drive down to VIR just, you know, to coach with us. It's like they're there for them. They'll hold that person's hand as much as needed. You're going to have classroom time that's really going to go over and get you ready for what goes on track. You know, it's a racetrack. Oh my God. But, you know, you start to realize that you're probably doing faster speeds sometimes on that off ramp than you are in some of these situations till you really get used to it. So you do this, you're out there, you've got your track time in, you're at the point where a coach is like, you're doing everything right. You know, everything you do is very consistent. If you're consistent, you're good. Because even if you're doing the wrong thing consistently means you have the ability to learn something at that point. You're not just random. And that's what it is. You become predictable. At some point, you're doing yourself a disservice if someone's always pushing yourself, because part of what we try to do is we want to teach people how to self-learn. And, you know, I can give you a fish or I can teach you how to fish, right? If I could teach you the habits of the basics that are out there, because listen, there's a million different ways to do something, right? There's always things that are absolutely wrong and there are things that are absolutely right. We try to make sure that you have those proper habits. You know, don't drive with one hand. Don't lean your seat back. Don't put your arm over the steering wheel like you're cruising on an round. You know, break those bad habits of making sure that you have the proper tools in your toolbox now to learn. Comes a time where now you become soloed off, right? You know, they go through progression, they check you out. We have a sheet that every coach, when they want to check someone off, right, they go through it, make sure this student does this, and this. I'm not going to go through the 2 pages of what they're looking at and say, you know what, I think this person's ready. You know, I think your time to really be out there on your own. At that point, the group leader will go out there and he'll get someone and they'll do a checkout ride. Before that checkout ride, though, that coach and one of the other coaches or group leaders has probably been watching you on track now because he knows that you're going to go solo soon. And to see what's going on from the outside, you go through all that, you find, boom, you're now a solo driver out there. But that's not the end. You know, you're still going to be with someone. So once you get soloed, that coach is staying with you. So whether, you know, you decide that we're going to do some lead follow exercises, drive in my tracks, pretend there was snow out there type of scenarios. And, you know, we have a lot of tools in our toolbox. You know, all of you guys are just fantastic. We couldn't do this without all of you coaches out there. You know, I haven't coached in quite a few years. And believe me, I will never forget how difficult it is sometimes out there. You know, you're never alone. Like, so once you're soloed, you know, that group leader now, when you move to the next group, is always going to be there as kind of that person to go to. You know, he's going to be there for you. You know, whether you have a problem with a turn or, you know, you're having an issue or, you know, you want to work on something, they're always going to be there with you as well as the coaches. And I mean, you can attest how many times you say, listen, you want to jump in this car with this guy? Because he's having issues at turn 7 over there. And, you know, just, you know, he might be a C driver, but, you know, he's just trying to get a little bit better at this, you know, so always there for you. So guys get soloed, they'll go out and the passing rules in A and B are pretty much straightaways. And in B, they're a little more looser, maybe an extra area here or there where the wheels are perceived straight. Generally, you know, there's no passing in the corners in that B Bravo group because we're still getting you used to that higher pace now. Once you get to that, you know, you have group leader meetings afterwards and some classroom time in our group B. You come to the point where it's like, you know what, I want to go to group C. And a couple times a year, we do a passing exercise, very similar to what is done in race school, where we do drills where people are 3 wide at a very reduced speed. Kind of gets you very used to and comfortable being right next to a mirror to mirror with a car, you know, and we're doing this at 25, 30 miles an hour for a session, just so you can get used to, you force people to be in the corners next to each other. We also, you know, kind of set the pace where people get used to flowing around each other, almost like a dance. And you've done the exercise, so it's kind of hard to describe on a podcast, but if you have 3 cars wide, the car all the way to your right, so to say, if you're going in that direction, sets the time when people are going to move around by dropping back, going over and getting on the outside. The car in the middle sets the speed you're going at, and the guy on the outside kind of just blips along. So you'll be in one of those spots at every time. So whether you have the car all the way on the inside of an apex, taking your turn, but not being able to track out all the way because someone's next to you at a very reduced speed, that feeling of what it feels like to be next to each other in a corner or get past multiple times. Most guys love the exercise. If we get a group where every B driver in there says, yeah, we've all done this like 3 times already like that. So, we might bypass that, but because, we want people to be happy. They realize the value in that. And there's a reason that's even taught in race school, because, no matter what, you're not used to being, unless you're, a little out there, nobody wants to be mirror to mirror with anyone on the highway all the time. You kind of want to be staggered. You want some space. You want some comfort zone, some emergency. Where am I getting out of this situation if something happens? So we want people to get used to that. So once they've at least done a B group exercise with us, or we know that driver, we've taken steps to promote him. At that point, he's out there, he's consistent, he's at the top of the group, and it's not about being fast, right? Because no matter what, you look at the cars that are out there today. A mediocre driver in a Z06 or a ZR1 or a GTR is going to look a lot better with all those electronics there in there to help you than, say, someone with maybe an older, slower E36, E30 Miata that has none of those things to kind of help them out there. So you really can't just judge on speed, so that's what we do. We really look at consistency, the flow, the courteousness, and the situation and dimensional awareness of what you have around you. You have all those things, how to pass in the turns out because you got it. You provisionally moved up into C at that point. Does it take 3 days on track? Does it take 2 years on track? Everyone's different. I don't tell people you have to do 10 days at this. Once you do this, then you can go to there. No, everyone's a little bit different. We have kids that come out, they're karting champions. I'm like, does that kid need an exercise and, dimensional awareness? No, he just needs to get used to how we do our things. He's already got that skill set. Passing is allowed anywhere, still with a point by, which I didn't really get into for people that don't do this. Basically, when you're in these run groups, in order for someone to pass you or for you to pass them, there has to be a point by. So if you want to let someone around you, you're going to point them in the direction that you want them to go around you, either by sticking your arm straight out very courteously. And I know I'm sticking my arm out on a podcast right there. Or you're going to kind of point up and just kind of give a big swing over so people, when you watch the extras, you'll see me acting like a monkey, like scratching my head here. So you're very much in control. And that's why I say it's a very safe environment where it's not like what seen on TV where people are just trying to get around each other. It's nothing. It's
not
like
Days
that.
of Thunder. No,
believe it or not. As much as I know I put that movie on where at Watkins Glen all the time in the background up there. It's very controlled. So the passing is always done controlled, and someone is always telling you yes. So if you're behind somebody and you just can't just pass them. There's corner workers are out there that are watching everything, along with coaches and group leaders that are out there and kind of in the background. And when something goes on like that, you're going to get black flagged and come in. Flags are flags, but for people that no, if you get a black flag rolled up and pointed at you, it means you got to come and you're going to be spoken to about something. So nobody wants to lose track time. So we don't get a lot of rule offenders. People realize that your safety is involved here, and everyone out there. And that's why he said we're adults. So that's passing is anywhere. You guys want to go 3 wide at turn 1 in the high banking at Pocono, go at it. You've got the skill set. You want to do it, go. I got to say, we have a very safe operation. A couple of years ago, the Locked In Affinity does our insurance for us. And they came to us and they told us, I said, you did 1.5 million miles on track last year. And you have no incidents, to report. Listen, people get mechanical failures, things happen. But, when they came to us a couple of years ago, they said, you think about it, 1.5 million miles. I guess that's what bean counters do for a living, right? They figure out how many cars are on there, how big the cars are, how much time you've had on there, how long does it take? And they figured out that we did about 1.5 million miles on track in the Northeast, and we've never had a claim, ever. We are considered by the insurance agencies out there the safest HPD organization in the country. So
nice. Congratulations.
Knock on wood. Thank God our rates reflect that. Helps me out a lot. So all our drivers are doing the right thing.
We missed a run group. We keep avoiding D group, Delta group. How does somebody qualify for this mysterious Delta group, which doesn't exist at every event?
No, it doesn't. The D group is basically, I'm not going to say it's one step up from C. It's different from C. The driving skill set and speed and pace is on par with C most of the times. It's not like any cars are that much faster, but the difference is point buys are not required out there. So it's an invitational group. It's the group that we have the least amount of incidences ever in any run group out there, because we're really careful who goes on out there. And that's where you'll see a lot of these IMSA teams come into practice, or, the Trans Am teams and these, pro drivers, they'll be out there in that Delta group. It's invitational. So basically, if you want to get into D, you have to be a C-level driver. Our D group leader is going to really go through everything with you and vet you to make sure you're there. It's dimensional awareness, situational awareness, predictability. There's no point buys required, even though people do give point buys in D sometimes, just to open the door. If I'm in an E36 doing 120 and I see that ZR1 one turn behind me, I'm just going to be like, yeah, just go right there. The door's open for you. I'm not going to do it.
Have a nice day. Yeah.
Yeah. It's, and there's 2 rules in D. There's 2 major rules. I know I have one. The only rule I have in D is there's no contesting corners. 2 friends are going at it back and forth. That's fine. But you and that car don't have some arrangement, some radio, some whatever, some history. You don't contest a corner. That is it. There's 0 tolerance for contesting a corner. You either give it or you don't give it. It's not a race. It's not race practice on how to block somebody. It's friends driving with friends and having a good time out there. I know this was the Chris Liu rule, and Ken says it too. Rule number 2, go out there, drive, don't be a dick. That's it.
I've heard that so many times. It's true.
And that's all. And that's it. So I have, my one rule is don't contest a corner, and the group leader has his own rules. We don't really allow driver switching of a car out there in D, because now you're out there, right? And you and Mark in the Mustang, you see him, how he drives, the predictability, you've learned it right away. Well, you get another driver in that car, suddenly he drives very differently. Now the predictability is gone. So that's one of the limits we set. We don't really want drivers switching cars that aren't there, which leads us into our group leader meetings. After the run group, about 10 minutes after you come off track. In the lower groups, there's more of them. The upper groups, there's usually now 1 or 2 after the first session of every event. That way, we can actually talk about what goes on. And they're really important, because that's where we're going to go. And that's a forum for the drivers. We're all going to talk to each other about what's going on out there, what we've seen, what we're experiencing. You're going to find out there's a guy with hand controls. You know what? He's not going to be able to give you a point buy somewhere. We're going to find out that there's a person, who's in, a radical that's going to be out there that morning with you, because you don't know all the drivers. So at that meeting, and when you have your first morning group leader meeting and then your meetings afterwards, you're going to find out what's going on in your group. It's going to make you safer for the day, and you're going to find out what's happening out there. Even though you may not have experienced, other drivers could say something. You could have pitted and then something happened out there. Say, hey, we're seeing this at turn 7. Who's driving that blue Corvette out there? Man, great job out there. It's like, listen, I saw how you took that turn and tracked out, and it creates a dialogue of drivers getting to know each other. I think when people get to know each other, they're also more courteous and respectful around each other too. They're not just some random car, it's a person. I think they're really valuable. It's hard to balance that of being overbearing and trying to give people too much, and guidelines on how to do this and how to do that, and being off in the wild, wild west. Absolutely. It's a balancing act. It definitely is. But I feel that those group leader meetings really help people that come out to it, and it's a place to share their grievances. You've seen my morning meeting is about 5 to 10 minutes long in the morning. I tell you where the bathrooms are, where lunch is going to be happening. I tell you the couple safety options. And one of the things I always tell people is, don't suffer in silence. Shooting me an email next week and telling me what happened and how we could do better is fantastic. And I want that. If I could fix something for you today, right here at the track to make it better, that's my goal. Come see me, Mona, any of the coaches that are out there, your group leaders, anyone, our grid staff is out there. You see something that goes on track that's weird, pull through the pits. Car 37. Listen, I don't think he's got a gas cap on there. We're going to take care of that right then and there.
Yeah.
Throughout the day, we try to make sure there's bottled water. Hopefully next year, COVID restrictions are lifted, we can get back to having, snacks and our drinks and our coffee and our, all the stuff that I shouldn't be eating every morning. But you never know what's going through someone. They didn't drink enough. You see a driver you've been driving with all day out there. It's a little bit different. You go out there and pull through the pits and say, hey, that car is really erratic out there. Pull him in. He might just need a wake-up call because he's dehydrated. We're always looking out for each other. I don't want people to suffer. I want to know whatever I can do to fix your day right then and there, I want to do. And that's and I think that's one of the things we try really hard. We don't always succeed, but we're always looking to get better.
We definitely appreciate it. And I got to say, I take this as a joke. One of the biggest changes I've seen over the years is your morning meeting has gotten shorter. And I thank you for it every time.
Yes.
But let's kind of switch up the conversation a little bit and talk a little bit more about coaching, because that's, the other side of the audience, right? You have the people that are really interested in trying HPD for the first time. You've got folks that are from other organizations that want to check out HOD for the first time, but there's also a glut of coaches out there that want to know what the HOD coaching program is like. Do you accept certifications from other groups? How do you become a coach with HOD? How do you get promoted to a coach within HOD? Do you recognize certifications from SCCA, PCA, MSF? Is there reciprocity there? Let's talk about that a little bit and try to invite some other coaches from other organizations to come and check out HOD as well.
We don't necessarily say, like, if you're a coach at any of the other organizations, it means you're automatically okay to coach, or, hey, I did my MSF level 1 and 2, I want to come coach with you. It really doesn't work that way. You need to have a certain skill set. If someone wants to come in there and they've been coaching and they're coaching with XYZ organizations, I don't want to single anyone out like that. They would come up and say, hey, I coach here and this is what I do, and I'd like to, come coach with you. So they come to me, or Mona or anyone else, we're going to put them right in touch with Ken, who's our lead coach. He's our head of coaches. I let him handle everything. I try to stay his hands off so I don't get in his way. My mentality has always been to manage from the bottom up, not the top down. I build a structure. This is the structure that we have to keep, refining there. These are some basic guidelines of what is yes and what's no. And from there, I feel as, in a tiered managerial type of position, my job is to give the people who, for lack of a better term, below me, the tools they need to do what they need to do. If I've instilled you as a group leader or a head coach or classroom or whatever that job that you have there, it's because I trust you enough at that job. If I have to babysit you and just watch you at every moment, then, I don't need to have you there. So you're an adult. I vetted you through a process and you belong there. So my job now is to make sure that you have what you need. So with that said, I put them on to Ken, and Ken will go through their resume, and, it's a small, tight circle, the HPD world. So we all know each other. I have no problems when someone, say from, when the guys out on Summit or Frat call me and say, hey, who this person is? He wants to drive in this run group. This person says he coached with, he wants to come here. And I'll give them their resume and their history and, some customer evaluations and different things like that. And other organizations will do the same. They go through that whole process. They give us their resume. They say this, we check out. Their head coach loves them. The, person who owns the organization says, yep, they're fantastic. They do great. Usually Ken will give you, it's a couple page document. It tells you the HOD philosophy, like what we explain, these people are our guests. We're not coaching them a certain way. If a person's there, I'm not going to try to beat their head that you need to know how to take this Apex perfect. That person's goal is what that person's goal is. If all you have to do is get him safely through the day. Make sure he has a good time and just break any bad habits as it goes on there. So the coach has to understand that philosophy. So depending where they came from, that's a hard thing to break sometimes, because certain organizations are very geared towards, we're teaching race car drivers, we're teaching a certain way, and they have to learn something. So once they realize that, they'll figure out, is this for me or not? We'll take them in provisionally, and then Ken or some of the other guys that have been around, the group leaders, will work with that person to make sure that they understand what their expectations are set at and how to handle that. If all works well, they do it a couple times, they're an HOD coach. Forget that we started this past year, and so far we're doing it yearly, and we're going to try and start to do it, and coming soon, at least twice a year. We have a coach workshop. So every year at Pocono right now, and we're going to try and do it more than once a year. It's just very hard to get track time in tandem with an event. The Saturday before our big mega course where we, do the entire facility, we rent a small part of the track. So we have seasoned coaches that are coming out to refreshers. We have coaches that are just going out there to be mentors. And we have people that want to come in there and basically do this. There's some qualifications, they have a chat with Ken first, and we only take, about 10 people through this. And most of the people just want to do it as a refresher, but we started that program now to kind of get people. We want our coaches to continuously improve. And like, if you stop learning, then you probably shouldn't be doing something, because, the moment you start looking at things, I have nothing else to learn, you probably have more to learn than you can imagine. And the first thing you need to learn is that I'll always learn something. So we really try to make sure that our coaches are up to date with different programs that are going out there, different technologies that are going out there. And whatever we can do, we try to share that information. We don't try to keep it all to ourselves and worry that, other places might take this somewhere else. Anything we can do to make the sport safer across the board is better for everybody. So if I teach a coach how to do something, he becomes better at it and takes it to another organization. Well, I know that someone's safer out there because of it. And those places, hopefully the reciprocity is there on how they do things. So, but we're trying, because there are a lot of places that have that, and they definitely teach a certain way and get some skill sets in there. But we've tried this now, and every year we're going to have at least one, and we're going to try and make more of them, where it's that coach clinic. We're not teaching you to be an instructor. We're teaching you how to do this better. Is this for you? And we're only going to take like a handful of new people and promote them. But most of our teaching has been one-on-one throughout the year, where we take you under our wing and really give you a personalized experience on how to coach. And it qualifies as an MSF certification too, for people that want that, which I think is a very good starting point. Is a really good starting point to learn, is this for me, type of stuff. It's definitely not a program where it's say, I've done MSF, now I'm a certified coach. No way. There's a lot more to it than that. At least for us, it is. And we want to make sure, like I said, that customer's getting what they deserve.
You brought up a really good point, and it's something that I learned early on when I was becoming a coach. I got this from John Meyer, who's also a veteran HOD coach from the Northeast. And because in his real world job, he was a ski instructor, he says coaching high performance driving is very much like coaching skiing, because you're taking children and adults that, you're trying to work on the basics, the balance, and, standing up on their skis and working the poles and all this. And it's a different type of mechanism than making large assumptions that everybody knows everything. And so, that really resonated when he explained that, what his philosophy was and his approach to coaching. And I see a lot of that actually amongst the HOD coaches, and you see it amongst the good coaches do approach it that way. It's like, you're kind of clay and we're going to mold you, or we're going to work from zero. And if you do have some natural talent, we can build upon that, we can go from there. But yeah, it's not very, you must take this apex at 80 miles an hour, like a race school would be. It's very much more low key. So I want to make sure that people understand that it's not a stressful situation. We're there to work within your limits. We understand some people can be more timid, some people can be more aggressive. We work with that, and the coaches are super adaptable to all these different personalities and cars and all that kind of thing. So the idea is to ingratiate you into this world of high performance driving, work with what we've got for that weekend in a very quick manner, but make very good forward progress for you, the driver. But also, we learn something every weekend. Every student, I'm well into the triple digits of students now that I've had. I learned something from each one of them, and I learned something from other coaches. I mean, it's just one of these very wealth of knowledge sharing type of environments. So I just want to remind people that is what it's really about. Again, that stress on that E part of HBDE. But I do want to move on to some of the more, kind of bits and bytes part of this that somebody might be listening for the first time, or is already comfortable with HBD, wants to know more about, HOD, which is, what are those average session lengths? What is the weekend cost on average? Let's talk about, dollars per mile, dollars per session. What does that boil down to for somebody that's looking to come to HOD for the first time?
That's a tough question to how we do that. My goal has always been to provide quality track time over quantity track time, so to say. So we were at Watkins Glen 2 weeks ago. I felt like we were so overcrowded with 40 some odd cars in the run group. But I break it down to what goes on. I'm like, okay, that's probably not that much. The guy that was running grid out there, he goes, oh man, you should see him. He goes, I don't want to say the name of the club, but they had 80 some odd cars in every run group. And I said, are you for real? He goes, I wouldn't lie to you. And I'm like, how can you have quality track time by putting 70 or 80 cars on there? Like, you get what you pay for. And I'm hoping that we're providing value and quality track time from the responses we get when we ask people. And I hope people are honest about it, but they say they get more quality track time, and that's what they're really looking for over quantity. So yeah, I could run 3 run groups, charge X, Y, and you had, more track time. But if you get 2 good laps every session, as opposed to 2 or 3 bad laps every day, for the whole day. I mean, I think, we try to not price people out, but at the same time, I want to try and get less cars on track. And that's something we're going to stick to next year, because as a softie, I'm not taking these calls anymore from people. But he goes, oh, I didn't register. I want to try and get in. And I'm like, okay, our car counts are always a little bit lower to begin with. So starting for 2022, we're going to really strict car count numbers, and that is it. It's sold out. It's sold out. And like I said, I leave myself like a 10 to 15% buffer. Like I said, if you register for B and you don't belong there, we're going to move you into C. And if you register for C and I find out when you get there that your experience is Forza, you're going into A,
Right.
I'll tell you about later, but I've had that twice in my life already. Yes. Gran Turismo was the name of choice. But so we're trying to do that. So when you get a track like Lime Rock, that's 1.5 miles long, it's in there. There's the most expensive track you could probably rent per mile. The couple tracks that are more expensive to rent out there, you look at Coda, is pretty long track there, such a huge facility. You get Watkins Glen, huge facility, 3.5 miles. And then you get Lime Rock, which is actually more expensive to rent because we're one of the few people that our weekend in June, the second week of June is become like a thing for us. And we don't have sound restrictions. So if you have a loud car or you need to practice with your race car, there's very limited opportunities to do that on a weekend there. So we have that. And we're usually, I think, the week before the SCCA regionals, which kind of helps a lot of those guys that really need that last minute test and tune or to bring a driver in and stuff like that. So I guess aimless pitch right there. We're there right before the SCCA races. How do you price that out? By giving people, and you have a decently short day. This is an expensive hobby. And if you think of it in the long run, like the cheapest part of that weekend might actually be the entry fee. Once you consider fuel, getting there, the cost of tires, the cost of brakes and everything else you do, that might be the cheapest part of it sometimes, besides maybe the hotel room. At Lime Rock, maybe not the hotel room. But well, look, we're there in June at the perfect springtime. It's prime season at a hotel up there, and there's some nice resorts there. It's kind of hard to balance that because at the end of the day, it's a business and we have to keep things flowing. But I do this more because I just love the sport. I love doing it. I love giving back, and I like to see the people that are having a good time. But like I said, we got to keep the lights on at the same time. There's no McLaren Senna in my future because of HOD right now. Unless McLaren wants to send me one. But I try to make it fair. Now we look at it, we come up with a number, and I figure out how many cars I can put per mile, what it costs to operate per minute there. The prices went up substantially, but I think this is what I'm going through all now to make next year's price schedule. It was running me $58 a minute to run at Lime Rock.
Wow.
So that's my cost per minute. I'm paying the track. So, do the math there. How many cars do you need at X amount of dollars to do that? I found out that most drivers would rather spend, $25 or $50 more to know that they're on a track with a couple less cars, with a different quality of drivers that they're used to. And I think that's what we're really catering to. We're not the budget track day where, you're coming in there, maximum time, go on and off all day. That's definitely not us. I've done a couple events where we did less run groups, midweek events. Guys were getting like 3.5 hours of track time midweek. I got complaints that there was too much track time. Like I literally got survey complaints that it goes too much track time in there and there wasn't enough time between sessions. And I'm looking at myself and I'm like, I thought that people just wanted more and more. So I started to realize that, most guys want a little bit of downtime in there. They want to be able to do things. There are a lot of drivers that are coming out there just because, this is their relaxation time. They're there with their friends. They're not out there to get maximum track time. So we try to balance that. So you could say on an average, 2 hours of track time, give or take, depending on the track. Say at Watkins Glen is a very, very short day. They're very strict from 8:30 to 4:30. That's your entire day with an hour lunch on there. Where at Pocono, we're on there for, a 10 or 11 hour day we can have, depending on what it is. We try to do that accordingly. So, but you can figure on the 2 hour mark, give or take. At Lime Rock, we'll run 20-minute sessions because, when pace car probably running, a minute and 10, a minute and 20 seconds. Fast guys are running under a minute. You're going to get, 15, 20 laps, depending what you're doing out there, depending where you're putting out there. If I gave you a 20-minute session of Watkins Glen, by the time you got your first lap done and you warmed up, you'd get almost no time. So we're building the schedules ahead of time. We're going to put them up on all the event pages and really try to adjust them to maximize the efficient time of you having a good time, having a break, depending where things are. I don't want you to have a 3-hour break because lunch fell in the middle of it all there. So it's a juggling act to try and make everyone happy. So we're definitely not the cheapest game in town. We're not the most expensive. We're just trying to make sure we're the most fun where you get the most quality track time. That's the goal here for me.
For people that are excited to come learn more about HOD and sign up for an event, where do they find out where HOD events are? How do they register for them?
That's the easiest part. They just go to hookedondriving.com. And then you'll see all the regions listed right across the board there. There's a membership fee that goes to our parent company, PDP, out in California. And what that does get you, there's quite a few discounts that come up with that, depending what you're doing. Wine Country is one of our national sponsors that come out there. So you'll get discounts, you'll get free shipping at certain times. Bell is one of our major sponsors out there. For the coaches out there, I don't know if they, a lot of people may not realize that every era, like the 2020 helmets came out there. So once every era, you're going to get any Bell helmet other than their I think 8860 line, those $4,000 helmets, any one of those helmets are going to be 25% off for you. So, all the catches, there's a lot of others like that. We have break partners. We have regional partners like that will be announcing certain deals for 2022. I don't want to shock anyone out there, but, we have Rachel and David Eaton from Eaton Motorsports are out there. They're at all our events. If you need something delivered to the track, they're bringing it with you out there. They're giving the HOD coaches a very nice discount on brake pads and a lot of the consumables that we go through. Those are the big ones, the consumables. People don't realize how that adds up. As you know, John has got PMX Motorsports coming out there. He's got some nice deals for communicators for all the coaches that want to upgrade from the old chatter boxes and stuff that would basically, point-to-point helmet stuff for motorcycle guys in tandem. But we've adapted. And so they give a lot of benefits out there that go through things, Apex wheels. Buy Apex wheels, they double the warranty if you're a Team HOD members. There's a lot of programs. And what I try to remind people, I see this all the time, and we actually go out our way to make sure people get refunded sometimes. It's like, wait, you and your wife and your son are coming. Why'd you buy 3 memberships? It's one family membership, and you can register any driver you want on there. Yeah, but that's something that helps keep that going on there for our sponsors and everything else. So there's a good amount of discounts that come out there that I hope people take advantage of out there, because it adds up. Once you get the money off on one set of brake pads, right there is more than that yearly fee.
Your events are listed on hookedondriving.com. Every once in a while, they pop up on places like Motorsport Reg and things like that, depending on where you are in the country. But you register through HOD's proprietary system on hookedondriving.com. And then obviously it walks you through, you pick your event, there's a whole shopping cart mechanism, all that kind of thing. And in the recent years, there's been something that's been added to the shopping cart. There's some options that you can get. And so normally I'll ask people like, do you recommend that a student get track insurance before coming to an event? But HOD actually recommends it right there at checkout. And you can sign up for track insurance through one of HOD's national partners. So I didn't know if you wanted to expand on that a little bit and get people to understand what that's all about.
You're flowing right in the direction I was going to go right into. So when you're on there and you order your stuff, one of the options out there, like after you fill out all your information and your driver information, your emergency contact, and you ordered what you want, there's that box there that said you want to purchase track insurance. And we don't provide track insurance. It's done through Open Track. Just try to do is provide an easier pathway so you don't have to go outside. You can get everything done at once. So basically you go through that, you decide whether you want to buy track insurance. And one of the questions you asked was like, do you suggest it? And I'm like, it's kind of like a personal type of thing. Like, as more insurance companies are looking at this, check your policy. Like, there's certain companies out there that, because we are strictly non-competitive as an education department, you would be covered. And there are a lot of insurance companies now that have changed and said anything that goes on at a race facility is not covered. So the best thing to do is to check your policy. But after that, you say you want to get track insurance. So, track insurance, with liability might be $350 for the weekend, right? Think about what in reference to what is value to you. This is my daily driver. This is a dedicated track car. It really depends on the person. And when you look at it and you say, okay, I'm spending $1,000 this weekend on a hotel room and an entry fee and this and that, and then, plus my fuel cost, plus my travel, is $350 make a difference? To some people, it might. To that person that's their daily driver, they come up with a value, and and that's what it's geared towards. So it's not like, okay, we're going to go find you another, 2006 this. You're going to have an agreed upon value when you do track insurance, which is very different from what most people are used to. You're going to know exactly what your deductible is. You know exactly what the value of your car is. So you're going to, you may have a car I value this car at $47,000. You know what you put into that car. That's going to be the value of that car on that track, regardless if they can find you 16 other cars for $4,000. They don't realize that you have $15,000 shocks in that car, and you have, $10,000 worth of motor work in that car. These motorsports HPD insurance companies, they're familiar with what we do, which is very different from, like, you try to explain an HPD guy to your local insurance agent, and he's gonna be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's relatively, cheap insurance, right, against what can happen out there. We don't see a lot of instances, and I know a lot of people do get the track insurance out there, so I'd never want to discourage anyone from getting it, because it's peace of mind. Insurance is peace of mind, is what it is for everybody. I suggest it. Yeah, it's out there. It's not in everyone's budget all the time, but at the same time, you got to look at the things. What's the cost of a windshield on your Pista? Exactly. $5,000 windshield. So it all depends on what goes on out there. As opposed to a car that does that. So I like it, but we don't actually make any money off of that. That is just a separate pass through that goes right to them. And in fact, even though you're putting your card and your information out there, you'll see it come out as two separate bills. One goes right to, what we did, what we hear. Team HOD fee goes where it has to go. And then that open track insurance goes where it has to go. So you'll see that separately out there. So we don't actually make any money on that. We're just trying to provide a service to our customers.
One-stop shopping.
There, it makes it easier. I've heard stories of people. He goes, I want to get track insurance and I called and I didn't do this, I do that. And I wish I would have gotten it. Well, now we put it right there on our website so you can do it very, very easily. I will say, the guys at Open Track are fantastically easy to deal with. They're responsive, the emails, the phone calls, or you're talking, if you need to, you can talk to a human being, right away. They work with us. So anytime people have had to make a claim or anything else, it's been very seamless. I just tell them, yep, this car was here at this event. I certified it was there. There's an incident report. And that's it. And they're done. It's 1, 2, 3. They've made it very, very simple and easy because the turnaround rate is so small. The chances of something happening to you at a racetrack during an education program like ours, you're more likely to have something happen to you on the way to the track and home than at the track. Really, it's, and I know that because, we've been told that from, the insurance agencies and the bean counters have told us that. I'm very proud of that. And I trust that because of you guys that are out there that coach for us. You're our eyes and ears out there in the other run groups. So I got to give all you guys out there that anyone who's a coach with us or coaches anywhere. You're the eyes and ears of everything in these operations. So, my hat's off to you right there, out there, sweet spot up there.
Well,
because you're the guys that make this sport what it is and safe. We couldn't do this. We've got new drivers.
Now, you did mention something that is truth that we all understand but often ignore, which is a mechanical failure, right? We are stressing machines to their utmost limit when they're at the track, especially when you're in the higher run groups, because we're not timing, but we're all reaching for this golden lap in our head, right? Let's call it what it is. A lot of organizations, they have a pre-inspection, they'll call it, or they'll have a tech inspection or something you have to fill out. And that's part of the registration process as well. So does HOD have that? If they do, how does it work? If they don't, how does that work? Explain that to the audience.
When you register for an HOD event, you come on there, you're on our website, you've gone to hookedondriving.com, you're going to get what's called an e-waiver. So we've gone to an electronic waiver system, an electronic text system. So basically, you're signing the same waiver that you would sign at the racetrack. Instead of signing it at every single event, you're signing a yearly waiver. Then you're also going to sign a tech inspection form that says that, and like I said, it goes back to treating you like an adult. You're getting out there, you're getting on a racetrack, you're getting into a car that you're going to push to a limit higher than what you would normally be driving. And it says that you're saying that, I'm going to make sure that all of these things at the most basic level have been checked out. You're going to do that before every event. So I don't need you to bring me a tech form. You've already told me. You've signed the document and said, hey, I'm going to be responsible enough to do all these things out there. Come the day of the event, I'm not going to go over your car and look at it and make you wait in a 20-minute line so someone could check your wheel nuts and take a peek under your hood or anything like that. One, no one at any of these events is really going to catch any of these major mechanical problems that usually happen. Two, it's time consuming. I'm asking you to fill out a waiver and sign that you did this, and then I'm going to check up on you as if you are lying to me. If that's the case, do I even want you on track with me? With all that said, our group leaders go over this, and our coaches are out there, and you do this also. When you meet that student and you go over it, you're kind of going to the conversation about the car. We're all car people because we're out there at the racetrack, and we're going to look at it. Yeah, check your torques and check your tire pressures this morning. Just give them a remember, because they got a lot of things going on in their mind. They're there for the first time. That coach 9 out of 10 times is going to give them a hand with that and say, oh, no. And say, no, you don't want to be at 38 pounds right now. I said, we're going to do this and we're going to build up, and, they're going to give them, because, they're a wealth of knowledge out there. They're going to notice if that car is, looking out there and says, well, that tire doesn't look like it belongs on track. We are walking the paddock. We are looking at things. We are making announcements. We are telling people in our group leader meetings, these are all the things, hey, guys, make sure, you went over your checklist on there and, you got it here. But before you go out, make sure your wheels are torqued, take a peek that nothing happened from the last track day. Hey, guys, I know you were here Thursday and Friday, but, it doesn't mean that, you're good today, Saturday and Sunday, because a lot of times events go back to back. And if it's a destination track, we do get a lot of people that will come say, it's a 12-hour ride. I'm not going there for 1 day or 2 days, but if I can do a 4-day weekend there, I'm going to do it. I will say mechanical failures that we've had usually are nothing that we would have caught ahead of time. No one's pulling up there, a very small percentage, and we usually catch them at the grid line, that's leaking, something like that. If something happens, it's usually something that's been just catastrophic right out there out in the open. And like you saw at Watkins, a motor blows,
I broke a wheel hub going into turn 1. I was like, all right, whatever. It happens, right? It is what it is.
I heard about a guy who broke an axle on a skid pad at Watkins Glen.
Hey, that's a story for another day.
It's a rainstorm, and then some maniac went out there and did the skid pad in the pickup truck. I still have that video. It's so funny. We were knee deep. We were pretty much knee deep in water pushing that car out of there, weren't we? But we had a good time. So, that's the process with the tech inspection, and in all seriousness, it's really, really important. You're putting your life on the line out there. Would you go out and drive with ball tires in a snowstorm out, on the road, with your family and your kids in the car? Probably not. Think of, what goes on, and if you're not capable of doing it, we're asking you, and you're asserting that you are going to have someone take this. And I got to say, a huge amount of people are out there, and they're going out there and they're getting their stuff checked out. And, we have certain, partners that are out there. Being such a big region, it's hard to say, okay, go to this one spot or that one spot there. We just want to make sure you're safe out there. And that's what it boils down to. And in the lower run groups, when you're first starting out there, if your car's roadworthy and in good shape, you can probably do this in there. You can't take your minivan, you can't take your big SUV or your pickup truck out there. Most road cars are out there. And like I said, it's funny when you see out there and you see, a brand new Performante out there, and there's a Honda Accord, bucket list type stuff, and they're out there together. It's crazy, right? If your car's capable of being out there, we ask you still, I don't care if it just came off the lot 3 weeks ago, go over it. Make sure. Things break. And being in the service industry, like a lot of people are out there, we do a lot of service stuff. If things didn't break, a lot of people wouldn't have jobs out there. So I stopped questioning why things break, but we do what we can to pick up beforehand. Find the wear and tear items. Don't come to the track when you only have a quarter of your brake pads left. Don't come to the track.
That never happens. That never, ever happens.
I won't mention any names, but he's an answer now.
It all is pretty much par for the course, right? These are things that people oftentimes forget to consider. And I think you've done a good job like explaining all that. But, as we're kind of wrapping up here and kind of bringing everything to a head, HOD has a lot of great things to offer. It's a great program. It's been around for a long time. It's progressive, right? It's been changing. It's adopting. You guys have been at the front end of a lot of programs, like MSF in its early days and things like that. So I wanted to take a moment to talk about if there were any other services that HOD offers that people might not be aware of, even if they've been around for a long time. You mentioned some changes that are coming in the 22 and 23 season, things that you guys have had to change because of COVID, anything else that you wanted to address.
The services we offer, what a lot of people realize, we do a lot of event management services and private event catering. There are people that want to go out there and do a private event. They want to, instead of doing a $100,000 Atlantic City bachelor party crazy weekend, let's get a bunch of guys, let's go to the racetrack and rent a racetrack and stuff. I just threw in a fictitious number out there. It's like, if anyone's out having a bachelor party where they're throwing $100,000 out there, please invite me.
I want to be on that list too. Right?
Me and Eric will be there right away. In fact, I'll put a cap on and drive. We're both professional drivers here. No, but we do a lot of event management and private event services, whether you're, a small club of enthusiasts, you got your local exotic car club or anything, or, the Shelby guys or the vintage Lotuses or anything like that. It's very hard to rent a racetrack. One, date availability is so hard to get out there. And two, it's ridiculous expensive. If you can have someone else put together a turnkey operation for you where you just have to arrive there and you're done, we do that for you. One of our partners right now is Track Car Solutions, and Mike is fantastic. You saw some of his setup over there, with the couple brand new C8s, the 1LE, the Z28s, the SS Camaros, and it's quite a few cars are out there. So for guys that want to do something and maybe do like, a team building exercise or do something together, there's solutions there where we can actually provide cars now. It's not like it was years ago where if you wanted to rent, you were renting kind of like a semi-prepped race car, and who doesn't know how to drive stick, and oh my God, I'm getting into this, what am I getting into over here, and I can't fit into these spelts. Mike at Track Car Solutions is in a lot of places, and he has an arrive and drive program. Whether one of our members wants to say, I always wanted to drive Coda. but I don't want to ship my car out there and I don't do that. Guess what? Simple phone call. You fly in there, you're picked up, you're there at the track, everything is taken care of, and you fly home and you've driven the shit out of someone else's car, basically. So we do that for people where, and say, hey, I want to do a little corporate outing on a Wednesday, in upstate New York, or whether it's in New Jersey or Pocono, we deal with the track operation. We get everything set together and we do that for you. Some car clubs, they want to do, they've, 15, 20 guys, they just want to be together and that's it. And they want to do all these, famous racetracks and do stuff like that. So, they'll pool their money together and kick in there, and they have 15, 20 dates. In California, we're doing that between Laguna and a couple other tracks that are out there, and it's just them, and that's it. So we do that, and we do that, pretty much everywhere. And you consider the caliber of racetracks we have out there, it's a lot of opportunity. I don't think a lot of people realize that we do that for them. Hopefully we can get some more guys out there to do some of these nice private days, because I can tell they're easygoing. People have a great time. It's a white glove service type of operation. We really try to treat them nice and have some fun out there. The other part of what we're planning to change, like I said, is we're really going to try and look over and just get away from what everyone else is doing. Everyone else does this, and this, and taking some of the data I've collected over the last 2 years of what works, some of the surveys, what people like, what people don't like. And obviously you can't make everybody happy all the time. And I'm going to start to put together, like I said, I mentioned some of the numbers for Watkins Glen. I'm like, you know how big that facility is, how big that track is. 27 cars out there. I mean, you should never see a train of cars out there. And it's like that. You do 35 cars, or in the higher run groups, it kind of gets boring when you don't have someone to play with, so to say. So, if you take 15 cars per mile and multiply that by 3.4, when I put 45 cars out there, I'm well under that. My goal has always been between 12 and 15 cars per mile. Next year, we're actually going to kind of work on that, where it's a lot less in our lower groups. I think people with less cars, even though it might be a little bit more money, kind of hurts the profit line a little bit later on, but I want them to have a good time. And I want them, when they get somewhere else, to be like, you know what? I'm going back. I really want them to be hooked on driving with us. I think that's one of the major changes we're going to be doing next year, along with keeping a very adaptable schedule. It's one of the things we do differently. Mishaps happen. Someone blows a motor and spins oil at the end of his run group. Who suffers? They had 2 laps left. Next group lost 10 minutes. I don't tell people like, well, sorry, you lost that run session because someone blew oil before you. What happens if that happens 3 times in a row? I don't want someone leaving there getting 15 minutes of track time for the day. As you've seen, like, I will go up there and I'll work with the race control people and really figure out, how do I maneuver this? At the end of the day, you've had cars break down. You have guys that are tired. You lose some drivers through attrition. They're just like, nah, I'm not going out the last sessions. Kind of at the end of the day, we'll try to manufacture where people fit in with each other. Like the C and D group drivers, for the most part, are on the same level. And that's where most of the coaches drive also. We have a lightly attended event and we're already running those lower numbers to begin with. It becomes a lot easier to kind of combine maybe one group to get back a half hour.
Makes sense.
And then, give the C group an extra 15 minutes here and give the B group the 20 minutes they lost here. So I try to adapt to that. I know you guys provide a great online tool, C scheduling and stuff. So we're going to try and work forward to have something electronic displayed at all our sites for next year. And we're working on that. Hopefully I'll get it done by March, where people will see any schedule changes. I know people tell me, I get on that microphone, at all events, and I try to make announcements and, like I said, our run group leader meetings, when we're going to make changes, and we try to adapt. As a driver, if I lost track time, it's upsetting, it happens. But it happens this time and this time and this time. We go through events where we have 4 or 5 events where like not one thing has ever gone wrong. And then you'll have an event where there's like literally 5 breakdowns, who blew a radiator hose, an oil line broke, or just mishaps, a control arm just snapped, things that just happen. It's nature. We're stressing cars out tremendously. It doesn't have to be driver error all the time.
Right.
Even though there is, I want to make sure that I try to make it right for those people as best I can. Something happens, near lunchtime. Okay, you know what? Guess what? We're going to start lunch now and move the whole schedule by a half hour. We try to work with the tracks to adapt that. People say share the wealth. I guess share the pain of losing a little track time. So you haven't lost 30 minutes of track time. Maybe every group has lost 4 or 5 minutes. And
it all just blurs into gray at that point. Yeah, exactly.
So, we try our best to really do that. And we're going to really work harder at that for next year to keep that number lower so we can adapt a little bit better. So hopefully, knock on wood, we won't need it, but it'll be another tool in our toolbox.
Now, the one looming thing out there, COVID is still a very real thing. And obviously we're going to foremost follow state, locality, and then track guidelines, right? Every track has different things. And even at Watkins Glen, there was posts all over the place, still social distancing and all this kind of stuff and this and that. I mean, there's a lot of open space at the Glen, which is nice. Like a lot of tracks, like you're not indoors at any point. Yeah. I'm not trying to make any exceptions there, but any special COVID related rules that HOD has instituted, whether between students and coaches or amongst the guests, whatever it might be that you want to share with folks so that they know coming into next season what to expect.
We're following old guidelines given to us by every track. Being that we cover so many states, it's a lot to follow. But behind the scenes, basically, I get there the day before. We do an inspection. We make sure things have actually been cleaned and sanitized. And if they're not, we get on the phone with whoever's got to do that. There's masks at our classroom. There's masks at the gate. There's masks at our registration table. And we tell people, listen, they're here. Anyone wants one, you don't feel comfortable with something, say something. We're going to do what we can. Like at Watkins Glen, we no longer use that little room for any kind of meetings. As far as the group leader meetings, we went and we use the media center now, which is, if you've been in those two rooms, is huge. People can be really spaced out, a little bit better between whether it's the press room or the other room. The other thing that goes on, like say for our coaches and all our novice guests or anyone who's going to be coached at an event, we also provide professional coaching for much higher level with data acquisition. It's in car and out of car. That's another thing that we do. We have a lot of pro coaches that will actually come to us, whether it's, they're flying in from California or, wherever they are. We had some fun with Billy Johnson last week. That's a whole nother story. That could be a whole podcast on its own. Yeah. So we send out an email and you say, listen, do you want to be with someone, whether you will not work with someone who's vaccinated? What's your preference as far as what you want? Do you want to be in a lead follow situation, which for, people that don't know what this is like, we're going to teach you from outside the car. We're going to do our best. And depending on the cars, and we try to pair people up because technology's here. There's a lot of great technology out there. We can Bluetooth car to car pretty much, right? There's a lot of options to use technology to help us. So we can guide someone behind them, walk them through as if they were in the car. That is a great tool to use. I feel in-car coaching still has a very important place because someone who's never done this probably has bad habits, whether it's they keep taking their hand off the wheel to hold the stick, or whether it's, their hand position. Being in the car as a coach, and I said there are certain risks, and I'll get into that too. You can see certain things, you can see his body language. You can see how tightly he's gripping and whether he's holding in the right spot. So a lot of habits to break that go on like that. So that part is a really important aspect of being in there. But we have COVID now. So how do you social distance in there? But we tell people, if you're going to be in a car together, listen, you have two wide open windows with 100-mile-an-hour wind coming through you, and you're wearing a face mask. So we insist if you're going to be in a car together, obviously, a father's coaching his son who lives at home with them and stuff like that. Am I going to enforce that? It's like, no, you live together. You drove in the same car there and you're sleeping in the same hotel room together. Let's use some common sense in here like that. But we send out an email, we survey, and we match people up with what they're looking for. But if people are in the car together, we're asking, and in certain states, it's mandated that you wear a mask at all times and the windows have to be down. We usually don't have a window rule. We're okay. Our insurance company's fine with it. Windows have to be either all the way up or all the way down. But like I said, how you can give a point by with a closed window. So
yeah, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right?
But for the coach, when it's raining, it's a great thing. The windows are open and you have to wear a face covering in there. Most of the people will wear a face mask, and then we'll give them an HOD balaclava, a head sock to put over this. So you have an extra layer out there.
Yep.
The communicators that we give out are sanitized. We have new foam pieces at every event. Basically, you're a student, you're going to get a headset of communicator that you're going to slide into your helmet. I know we're on a podcast. I'm making hand motions here. Like that. And you're going to put it in there. So that's been sanitized. It's been cleaned. Bring bottles of alcohol and stuff to every event with cleaning wipes and sanitizing wipes. After that mic's been sanitized, a new foam mic cover goes on that, and you keep that with you. So that's yours. You're using it. And then when you give it back to the coach, when you're done with it, He's going to clean and sanitize it, and then we provide, new foam pieces for them. I mean, at the coaches meeting when Ken goes, I have foam mic feet if you need new ones. A lot of guys I've noticed have been going on Amazon just buying them for themselves, because they just want to make sure they always have them. And there are people that never go out and follow the strictest guidelines, and they suddenly get it out of nowhere. So we do the best we can to protect ourselves, but we treat you like an adult. You're outside. How much time are you really spending alone in a close quarters with someone? It's really minimal, but we still insist that you have there. And we ask, you to choose your vaccination request. If you do not want to be with someone who's unvaccinated, we were not going to pair you with someone who's unvaccinated. It's your choice. We're all adults, and we're never going to try and force anyone to a situation that they're not happy with.
And on the flip side of that, now's a great opportunity to start thinking about maybe refreshing your helmet and getting one with comms already built into it. I will say I made the switch last season because I was due for a new helmet, and I will never buy another helmet that doesn't have integrated comms ever again, because it is a godsend, that's for sure. But at any rate, so Mike, as we're closing out here, any shout outs you want to give to sponsors, friends, people, while you still have the microphone at your disposal? Anything you want to say to fans out there of HOD as a thank you or otherwise?
I got to thank all the coaches that are out there. I mean, they do a fantastic job of really showing the people that are out there what we're about. The staff people that I work with, I got to say, we have the most amazing group leaders and out there, our Group C leader, Steve Furman. It's funny, you hear me at the drivers meeting, the jeweler of the drivers, he's, have you seen, you guys have those HOD watches, Steve made them for everybody, he just created that stuff. So he's great. He's fantastic out there, and he really, really is passionate about what he does. He cares about those people. Like, they're like his kids, even if they're older than him. That's the way he looks at it. He goes, Ken has been indisposable. I mean, he's just fantastic. He's been the Group D leader, which kind of just fit great for him for a while, because it's, he's got a lot of coaches who are running in there. He really has his hands on, right on there, of what we actually do and what we mean. And the amount of time and effort he puts into things, it shows completely on how operations run. He's been fantastic, Ken, out there. And we have Dave Du Bois has come on, and people know Dave has been around for a very long time doing this. Chief instructor for Ferrari comes out there, and and he helps us with our intermediate drivers, the hardest run group I think there is out there. And then you have Jay, who's been around, and sorry Jay, but I think you've been around before dirt, doing this. There are tracks that have opened and closed, and no longer exist that you've been to that I'll never get to see now. And all these guys bring all these years of experience, and their only goal is to really pass on this information so this can continue and be out there. And it's so I got to thank all those guys out there that really make this happen. I got to thank the coaches that are always out there, just looking out for people and just really on top of everything to make sure we have a great event. And then we have the people that come out there and make our drivers and our people that are out here fantastic. Like I mentioned, Dave and Rachel from Eaton Motorsport, they do an absolutely fantastic job of out there. And if it's funny too, because if you go to their website, you'd think they were only a Subaru type of guy, but they do everything. I had a problem with some shocks on my RV. They actually got me Coney shocks for my RV. So they're a one-stop operation out there. A lot of guys know Greg Bristow from his Camaro days. And, even though we haven't seen him in a while, but he provides all those numbers, those awesome stickers that everyone looks forward to. We have Fast Automotive, Adrian and his Trans Am team, they come out with us. They do so much trackside support for everyone. It's great. This year, we've had Bright come on. And if people don't know what Bright is, they're an internet solution security company. What she said really hit home is like, you're out here, enjoying your time at the track. You don't have to worry about what's going on with your website, especially with internet commerce. And, so much is based on the websites out there. And that's what they do. And they've come out there and they've had a great time. And like I said, I mentioned Mike already from Track Car Solutions. There's lots of times when guys they don't want to bring their $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 car out to a racetrack. One windshield is more expensive on their car than renting a track car for the day. So Track Car Solutions provides a great chance for people to drive some really nice cars without having to take their cars out. Or the flip side is that they can actually go to tracks around the country without having to ship their car. So these are guys that are making our drivers' days a lot easier. And these are our local regional guys. And we try to, have a part for everywhere. Next year, one of our drivers, Chris Coronado, I mean, he's got a tremendous realty group out of Jersey, and he does a tremendous amount of rental properties. You could say almost like an Airbnb up at Watkins Glen area. You don't want to stay in a hotel room. And we try, like I said, you've seen our operation. We're very family friendly. We ask people, bring your wives, bring your girlfriends, bring your kids out there, and there's things to do, especially at a place like Watkins Glen. It's how I first got Mona to come out to the track. I got them to come out to go camping, and they would go to Corning Glass Museum and see the waterfalls, and we'd go camping and stuff like that. So it's a really awesome, like, family type of weekend out there where, you get to go out and play, and they can do a couple of things. And then, our day ends at 4:30. So you are plenty of time to go out and do stuff with the family and have dinner and everything else. Chris is a great guy. He's super fast out there. And he's got a bunch of properties out there up in Watkins Glen that he does rentals for guys that, want to do a bed and breakfast near the trackside. And as a track guy, it's great to have someone like that on board. Try to figure out what helps people. And I say this in my meetings and stuff like that. So we're the core of America, all these small businesses out there, and we should always really be trying to help each other out there. Jeff Bezos does not need another jet. I don't think he does. I mean, maybe he does. Can you get those same brake pads on Amazon, maybe a little cheaper? Maybe, probably not with the service that these people are going to provide. And, when you get some, say from Dave and Rachel Eaton out there, it's going to be a real part, and you don't have to worry about whether it's been fake or anything else like that. Yeah. So when you're dealing with these people, they're really top-notch guys. They're track people. They come to the track, and that's what they're all about. So they understand what people need, what they want, and what they expect. I love our continued relationship with them, locally. And then on National Tires, we have Toyo, which is another, thing which is unheard of in the HPD industry. All our coaches, I know, and you get them, right? You see them when they come in there. So when you coach, every event you coach for us, you're going to get Toyo bucks sent to you, which you redeem. And then, every event you're out there, you do a couple events, next thing you know, you have $400 or $500 towards, getting a Toyo tire, Well, if you're in a Miata, that's more than half a set right there. If you're in a new Camaro, that's almost one back tire.
Yeah, right.
So those little perks that we tried really our hardest to provide for our coaches, because those are the guys out there and our members that are coming out there. Everyone works hard for what they have out there, and I appreciate that they choose Hooked on Driving, and I'm going to do my best to give them the best day that they can, and that's what we do out there. So thank you to all those people out there. Thanks Bell, thanks Locked in Affinity, thanks Open Track and Wine Country, and the corner workers, because people don't realize they're the unsung heroes. Those corner workers and ambulance workers and our track first responders. I mean, you have no idea what's happening in that next turn. And when you're doing 160 in the back straight at Watkins Glen, that flagger is the only person that's going to tell you what's up there ahead of you. And those people, I think, don't get the recognition they deserve. So every time I get, I thank them out there. Those are the people that are keeping us safe. They're the guys that are giving us communication of what's going to happen in front of us. If any of those guys ever listen to any of this like that, listen, thank you so much for what you do. And, it's a labor of love for those guys. I know that. They're out there, and whether it's raining, whether it's hot, no matter what it is, keeping us safe. So I want to thank them out there too.
I think there's two people we forgot, and I'm going to shout out to them. First and foremost, Jay's better half, Ginny, for always being at every event, putting up with all the shenanigans and the chaos that goes on. But there's one other person, and I know she's in the room with you, and she deserves a massive amount of applause for keeping everything running so smoothly. And that's a big... No, it's a big thank you to Mona.
She abandoned me for this call, for this podcast.
I don't think this ship would stay afloat without Mona. No. And she doesn't ask for a lot of praise, but she deserves every ounce of it. So thank you.
I will say I'm very blessed to have Mona in my life with this. She is the voice of Hooked on Driving. When you call, she's the one who picks up the phone. She tells me everything I'm doing wrong. And once in a while, very rare, she tells me what I do right. Now you're out there.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
And I can't tell you how many people have met at the track are now like family, friends, go on vacations together. It's a really great feeling to see that, we can provide that field and that environment where people are so comfortable that, you got to come over, bring your wife over to my house for dinner and stuff like that, where, I never really saw that before HOD. I didn't see a lot of that. And I think we kind of moved in that direction. There's a lot of organizations out there And, I think we've scratched the surface on a single digit percentage of what's out there car wise. I mean, this is the golden age of performance in cars. It really is right now. So, I mean, you think about the amount of cars that are out there that can do this and the amount of cars that are doing this, there's a lot of people out there. So I think there's something for everyone, like I said, not everyone wants to be a race car driver. And, we treat people as that friends driving with friends, drivers driving with drivers,
So with that, Mike, I have to say it has been an honor and a privilege to grow with and be able to work with HOD all these years. Obviously, we've had a strong relationship. Many of us from GTM come from HOD and vice versa. And it's been a mutually beneficial family relationship, as you call it. So it's been an honor to be able to be part of this and see this story expand and be able to, stand here and go, what does the next 5-10 years look like with HOD? And so we're really excited to see what happens and what comes of all this. And so for those of you that don't know the story, you're hearing this for the first time and you want to learn more about HOD, now's your opportunity to jump on www.hookedondriving.com and then click on Northeast and check out all the things that Mike was talking about. Or maybe you live in a different part of the country, check out the other events that Hooked on Driving has nationally that are available to you. Also check for up-to-date schedules on HPDE Junkie, another HOD partner, but also remember to follow HOD on Instagram at Hooked on Driving and at Hooked on Driving NE for Northeast, or join the HOD Northeast Facebook group. So if you're into that and you want to chat with some people, reconnect with folks that you met at the track, that's a great opportunity to do that. So Mike and Mona, who I know is in the background, I can't thank you both enough for all the many years of us working together, but also for coming on Break Fix and getting this opportunity to get your story out there and tell people and get them closer to HOD. And hopefully we'll see them out there next season.
No, listen, thank you for having us on here. And thanks for, over the years, you guys have definitely put a tremendous amount of support in us. And, me and Mona, we appreciate that. We love that, you'd have your yearly bash at the events, We've had a couple anniversaries out there, which are always fun. Shenandoah is back on the schedule for this year.
All right.
Yes. So I did not put it up. It'll be putting up tonight. Silly fact. We wrote the dates down, scribbled them down when I was with the track on the bill, and we couldn't find them. And we will be the third weekend of June at Shenandoah. So
that's a great weekend. So looking forward to that.
Let us know if we're
plan around that. Yeah, that'll work.
And then we have the Summit Maine back later on, but I think June is more fun, especially with the skid pad like that. So
I'll bring extra axles. How about that? Is that a deal?
And we definitely plan on bringing back our Saturday night barbecues if COVID allows it. That's one of the things we've missed the most, that family type of everyone getting together and just, everything just has such a good time. That's what I think I missed the most about this past season with COVID taking over. Barbecues are legendary.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just get a couple of us, mix a little Pat Sullivan in there, and you're having a good time.
It's all a good time. That's right, listeners. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to check out our Patreon for a follow-on Pit Stop mini-sode. So check that out on www.patreon.com/GT Motorsports and get access to all sorts of behind-the-scenes content from this episode and more.
If you like what you've heard and want to learn more about GTM, be sure to check us out on www.gtmotorsports.org. You can also find us on Instagram at Grand Touring Motorsports. Also, if you want to get involved or have suggestions for future shows, you can call or text us at 202-630-1770 or send us an email at crewchief@gtmotorsports.org. We'd love to hear from you.
Hey everybody, Crew Chief Eric here. We really hope you enjoyed this episode of Break Fix, and we wanted to remind you that GTM remains a no annual fees organization. And our goal is to continue to bring you quality episodes like this one at no charge. As a loyal listener, please consider subscribing to our Patreon for bonus and behind-the-scenes content, extra goodies, and GTM swag. For as little as $2.50 a month, you can keep our developers, writers, editors, casters, and other volunteers fed on their strict diet of Fig Newtons, gummy bears, and Monster. Consider signing up for Patreon today at www.patreon.com/GT Motorsports. And remember, without fans, supporters, and members like you, none of this would be possible.